Anwar is a Google developer expert in Dart Flutter. The second most followed YouTube in the globally space. So stay connected.
Sure. Okay, guys, do you know Google Pay app is built using Flutter for both Android and iOS? Not even Google, BMW, eBay, Alibaba using Flutter for building their apps. And I think most of you guys know what is Flutter, but if you don't know, let me give you a short introduction. Like Flutter is open source UI toolkit created by Google, which helps us or developer to create cross-platform application with single code base. That means you write once and your app works on Android, iOS, Linux, Mac, Windows, and web. That's amazing. Okay, let me introduce myself. My name is Anwar and Abdullah. I'm a Google developer expert for Flutter and Dart. Also the founder of the Flutter Way, which is the second most subscribed YouTube channel for Flutter. And I love open source, to be honest. And still now I have more than 20 or 25 plus projects on GitHub, which have more than 20,000 stars and more than 7,000 people follow me on GitHub, which is amazing. You know, I never imagined that much people follow me on GitHub. Okay, now come to the point. Today I'll talk about Flutter and sound null safety. So I'm trying to help you understand about null safety and Dart, get to know Dart type system and how to utilize language feature in production code. The first question you may ask, what does it mean by null safety? Null means no value. Let's say if you are someone who want registered into an app or website where you have option for first name, middle name, and last name. It's probably you have first name and last name, but you don't have any middle name. That means your middle name is null. Programmatically. What is sound null safety? Not a lot of programming language support sound null safety, but Dart and Sweech support sound null safety. Okay, but what it is? Sound null safety is something like if there is a possibilities to get a null, then it shows you, hey man, do you know it can be a null? Let's say I'm trying to build an app login screen where I already mentioned you guys, let's say I have 3 parameters like first name, last name, and middle name. And I on that sometime I said, I know the middle name can be null. So sometimes I don't define to the Dart that, hey man, the middle name can be a null. But sometimes once I get null values, the Dart told me, hey, do you know that this middle name can be a null? Then I told Dart, hey, I know that can be a null, no worries. I know, and I'll handle the rest like that. I'll explain it a little bit more on future, don't worry. Unsound null safety. Most of the language like Java, Python, they support unsound null safety. They're not giving you any warning, and like if the middle name is null, they're not giving you any warning. But I think sound null safety is much better. Also, it improves your performance. Okay, now come to the action. If you want to follow along with me, you can go to this URL flutter.dev/go/null safety workshop. In Google I/O 2021, they created this null safety workshop where they are giving some ideas, but recently Flutter by default come with null safety. So to be honest, at the beginning, I'm facing some issue about this null safety. Okay, where to use this question mark or something like that. So I try to explain you how to solve those simple problem, but sometimes those simple problem causing a huge mess on our code. That's nothing. Just go to this URL and you'll find something like that. Okay. If you don't know what is Dartpad, let me introduce it. Dartpad is nothing but just an online code editor for Flutter or Dart. So even you can create simple Flutter app on Dartpad. Let's say you are planning to shift Flutter or at least try how it is, and you don't want to install Flutter on your device, just go to Dartpad and you can easily create a simple Flutter app on it. But once you go to this address, you'll show this code, and yeah, this is what we don't like, error. It shows a error, don't worry. Today I'm going to show you how we can solve this error. It's a null error. On line number, now come to the line number 2, we define a variable a, and we say that a only can be an integer. But on line number 3, we define a is null. That's why it shows us this warning. That's the hey man, on line number 2, you say that a is only a null value, but on line number 3, you define a is equal null. So this is not. I think there will be some problem. Okay, so that before you hit run, you know, okay, there's something in messy here. Let's fix that. So that you can define anything like 1, 2, 3 in integer value. So the problem will be solved. As you can see, the error is gone. Now it will run the code. On the console, we say a is 5. The problem is solved. Pretty easy, you know. Okay, now come to the second problem. But the problem is same. Now, let's say here on line number 2, I said a is integer, but let's say in some case, or a is your middle name, or you said, yeah, it can be an integer or a null. So how you can say that, or how you can define on the header, don't worry. I know a only can be a null or a integer. It's also pretty simple. Just add a question mark here, and the error will be gone. It doesn't matter. Now, if you can define a is null, it's not showing error because Dart know that a is only integer or null. Or let's say again we define 5, it's no error. Just hit run. It's 5. Looks good. Pretty simple, isn't it? Now come to our next problem. Okay, it's a little bit bigger one and it has 2 errors there. No problem. We're gonna solve it. Okay, let me explain the code at first. On line number 2, we have a list of strings, as it's said. List of strings 1, 2, 3. On line number 3, we have a nullable list of strings. The null is not showing any error. On line number 4, a list of nullable string shows then 1 error. On line number 3, on line number 6, let's print our first list. On line number 7, we print our second list. On line number 8, we try to print our last list. But on line number 7, it shows the error. So how we can solve it? So it means this one, a nullable list of strings. So what does it means? Stuff. What does it mean? What does it try to say? It says this variable is a list of string, but here there is no list. It's a null. So how can we solve it? Maybe you can think. I'll give you like 10 seconds or 20 seconds. You can think how we can solve it because before we already solved our a integer value and the solution is similar to that. Just let's think for 10 seconds, then I'll help you. If you figure it out, then congratulations. Great. If you are not, then no problem. I'm here. I'll help you. Okay, the problem is pretty simple. Just add a question mark here. And the error is gone. Now, what does it mean? So it means this variable can be a null or a string. And yeah, as we said, Dart said, okay, so I know this variable is a string, a list of string or a null. Now it is null, no problem. You already said that. Don't worry. I know it can be a null. Okay, I'm totally fine with that. Now come to the line number 4. We still have 1 error left. So we said again, it means a list of string. And as you can see, we already define our list. But inside the list, it shows null. But what we said, inside the list, it only contains string. But here, it's not string. If it is string, then there will be no error, as you can see. But it's not. So we need to say dirt. Hey, I know. So something we can replace a null to string, or say say to dirt. Hey, don't worry. I know inside the string there will be a null value. So how can we say that? If we add our question mark here, does this solve the problem? I don't think so. We can still show our error. Well, because it says this variable can be a list or a null, but the error is inside the list. We already have the list, but inside the list we have our null value. So something like that. Now this list defined, it means inside the list we contain string but no null. So we need to add our question mark here. So what it means, inside the list is not null, but inside the list we have string or a null value. As you can see, all of our error is gone. We can run our code, no problem. Oh, everything is worked perfectly fine. Now let's check the next error. Okay, that is pretty big. Let me hide. Okay, no problem. Okay, let me explain the code again. On line number 1, it said it's a function which called could return null but doesn't, because it always return -3. As you can see inside this main function, which is could be null but isn't. As you can see, we already mentioned it can be a null or integer. It's 1, obviously it's not null. Then again, a list that could hold nulls. It's not showing error because we say the list is not null, but inside the list, it can be an integer or a null. That's why there is no error. But the error shows on line number 8, where we try to find our first value of this item. So what we say that inside the list, it can be an integer or a null value. So Dart say that, hey man, okay, I'm pretty good. You tried to access this list, but inside the list, you said this value can be a null or integer. So you have to say, you have to confirm that this value is not null, because this where I'm gonna print B, because this what you are saying here, B is not null. It's only contain integer. So make sure it's integer. So how can I say that? Don't worry, man. I know. Just trust me. This is an integer. Nothing. Just add a null assertion operation here. The error is gone. It means it says that, hey Dart, don't worry. I know the first value is not null. It always return integer. That's it. Okay, I trust you, man. I just remove the error. Here we are. Now come to the line number 9. Could return null. Now come to our next error, which is we could call our function and nothing else. It's error because this function, we say this function can be integer or a null, but our C is only, our variable C is only integer. So again, we say that, hey man, don't worry. This function only returns integer. It does not return any null value. So how can we solve that? You guys, I think most of you guys already know the solution. I'll just again give you like 10 seconds to think, then I'll solve the problem. Okay, if you again do that, it's a great job, man. You are great. But if you can't, no problem. I'm here to help. It's kind of tricky one when you define it here. But why? because we want to check this function is not return any null, not that one. Once this function get the value, will absorb the value, evaluate the value, thus return the positive 3. So we make sure that this function is not returning any null value. But I don't know how many of you guys just noticed here. I'm saying this value variable can be integer or a null, but Flutter Dart is not showing any error, and I'm not any assertion operation here because smart enough and that this value cannot return null. It always return any integer value because we already defined this variable to 1. But if we put this outside of this function, now it shows Dart said, hey man, now I don't know. It may be a null or maybe integer because anywhere this come from the outside my scope, so anywhere you can change it. So make sure it is not null. If this is outside your scope, just add null assertion operation, the problem is solved. But if it is inside the function, Dart is smart enough to know, okay, okay, I know it's not returning any null value, it's always return integer. Don't worry about it, I'll handle it by myself. I'm smart enough, AI. Okay, now come to our final step. Oh my god, lot of error. Okay, let's hide those errors, otherwise we can't solve our problem. It's a simple, at first we define a simple function which we're gonna add 3 values, first, second, and third, nothing else. And on line number 10 we call it, that's it. But it shows that error. Why? Let's say if you want to sum 3 values, then you have to, you must have 3 values. Let's say, so you have first, second, and third. All of those 3 are required. So on Flutter, on a class or function, if you have parameter and those are required, there is a keyword for that, and which is required keyword. If you want to solve the problem, because this first variable is required, just define require here, required, sorry, the problem is gone. Same for other two, for second variable is all parameter is also required, also third one. So if we want to add 3 values, we have to pass 3 values. Now, once we define our function, if we don't define the first value, it shows error. Why? Because it says the name parameter first is required, but there's no value here. Pretty simple, isn't it? Those are the common problems that we all face while working with Dart, and also especially if you're a beginner. Those simple problems that that you hustle most of the time, and it takes a lot of time. Even not beginners. Once Flutter introduced null safety, for a couple of days, I'm pretty, I'm facing a lot of those kind of errors. Okay, how to solve this? It shows me, oh man, how to add this question mark, assertion, null assertion, and a lot of it. It always takes time, and the main part is practice. Just practice and practice, and day by day you will get it pretty clear. After you have enough practice, then you saw the code and know, yeah, this is where I need to add question mark, this error showing because of that one, something like that. I think you guys learned something new and it's interesting. This is it for me today. And if you want to know more about those kind of my channel, you can visit to my channel called the Flutter Way, where I show you guys how to build beautiful UIs on Flutter most of the time, and all of those are speed code. And again, if you want to check this is a problem, go to the flutter.dev/go/null/safety workshop, or if you want to access Dart pad to one, let's say you are lazy like me, you don't want to install Flutter on your device, just at first you want to play with it, just go to dartpad.dev, you'll find it here. Now, if you guys have any question, you can ask me, no problem.
Someone has asked what's the double question mark sign for?
It's like if you have double question mark, it means if the value is null, then use the default. It's kind of default value. How can I define? Okay, let me share my screen again. Print, or let's say we have a variable called what we call sum. Okay, sum or 10. So what does it mean here? If the sum is null, then print 10. Nothing else. It's kind of default value. If null, instead of it's the shorter version. If this value is null, then print this one. Otherwise, print that one. That's it.
When we use late keyword, so is it also solving null safety problem?
Yes, obviously. Let's say you just define. You most of the time you use late on animation. Just let's say you define something animation controller and you call it later, because on initial state you will define the animation later. You'll do it later. You say, don't worry, man, I'll define this variable later. And most of the time on the initial state or animation, we need later. This keyword a lot. We use it a lot on animation or like any controller, keyboard controller, something like that, scroll controller, or we'll initial it on later.
Another question, I mean, just an open end regarding null safety as well. Again, regarding the null assertion operator, I mean, I was just wondering that if we already know that the value is not going to be null, I mean, what is the need to tell Dart that this value is not going to be null? I mean, what's the actual use of this operator, or what value is it providing?
Not really. Let's say if you say this value a is not a is always contain integer. Let's say your age is always some value, or it cannot be null, and their Flutter is not showing any error. Let's say you have middle name, or it can, because you already defined this value, it can be null or not. Once you add the question mark, then you have to null assertion. You have to define the null assertion, because you need to define that, hey man, it can be null, I know, but this time it's not null because I have proper checking and other kind of stuff.